Hello, everybody. Welcome to High Vibin' It. We are super excited to have you back for another amazing episode. Thanks for being here with us. We are here every week to help you live your best life, raise your vibration, feel better, release resistance, manifest all the things, get witchy, talk about some fun stuff. And today we are here with Miss Katie Beecher, and she is a medical intuitive. So we're really excited to pick her brain and get her wisdom. She's also a licensed counselor. So gotta love that. We love getting the support from the people here on the show. So Katie, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to talk to you guys.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, maybe for people who aren't familiar with the term medical intuitive, can you explain what that means?
Absolutely. So we all work a little bit differently. All of us, we're medical intuitive people, just the mediums work a little bit differently. And what I do is with just someone's name and age, I tune into their energy, and then I create a 4-page report and symbolic painting. And it's very detailed, and it's emotional, physical, spiritual stuff about their entire life. So, relationships and childhood and family and physical issues and emotional issues and intuitive abilities and like everything under the sun. And the goal is to look for root causes of things that are presenting with difficulty in their lives, help them connect to intuition, help them become their authentic selves, and devise a plan for going forward in terms of healing. A lot of the people who contact me do have a physical issues, but not everyone. Mm-hmm. So it's as much about healing as it is about overall wellness.
Yeah, very cool. Okay. That's interesting. Like your format of the name and the age, and then you get all the downloads and then you submit. So like you're not really like always in your daily life, like reading people and picking up on things, or are you?
I have learned that I can't be, it's always there, not gonna lie, it's always there. But I have learned, and this is partially from being a therapist for 30 years too, that you can't always be on and you can't always be open to receiving that information full force. Yeah. So the way that I do the readings, I kind of have my little, my time before, send them the report, we meet, talk about it, and it kind of keeps it a little bit more, a little bit more compact rather than me just being open and all the time.
It's in a designated spot so that when you leave that session or whatever, you don't have to carry it, and you don't have to worry about stuff coming to you all the time. It sounds like you've set some pretty strict and loving energetic boundaries with what you do, which is definitely needed, especially with intuitives,
Yes, it's so true. I am an empath. I've always been that way. I've always been super sensitive. And it was kind of, before I got a handle on it or even knew what it was, it could be really disabling, because seeing people in pain or getting their stuff, or especially growing up in a dysfunctional family, you were just always exposed to shit, basically.
Yeah.
It's a matter of not letting it impact you too much, which it impacted me a ton. But I had to learn as I got healthier that isn't a way to live and function.
Yeah, too much overload.
Yes.
Too much information all at once. So it's good to have boundaries. Life lesson number 1 of this awesome episode. I'm so excited to have you here. Maybe I would love to start with like a story. I know you're not allowed to share names or anything, but do you have any cool stories of any recent people that you've worked with, or information that came in and how maybe it helped someone, or how something was manifesting in someone's body, or anything like that?
One of my favorite stories is I work with people of all ages. So a mom contacted me about her 5-year-old son. All I knew is his age and his name. And I'm so sorry. Get rid of that. So the report, did my report, whatever. When I was doing the paintings, so the paintings are watercolors. They can be figures or animals or basically whatever. They're all different. And unusually for me, I saw a truck, and it was a fire truck. So made, these are not detailed paintings, made a picture of the truck, and then saw a fireman shooting water up into this really high building. So I made that, the apartment kind of thing, and just kind of went with it. I've learned not to really analyze my
I'm just going to pretend you have fairies over.
Thank you. Yes, it's my children. It's my children. Stop that. Yeah. So yeah. I've learned not to question or analyze what my guides are telling me, because as a human, I can misinterpret it and screw it up. Just kind of let it happen. So I was trying to draw a fire hose on the side of this fire truck, and it just looked like an S. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. I know how to draw, like I'm an artist. Why does this look weird? And I said to myself, it looks like Superman's fire truck. So fine, meet with her. And when we get to the painting part of the exercise, she starts crying. And she said, can you tell me about this drawing? So I told her exactly what I just told you guys. And she said, right before I got pregnant, so her son had autism very severely, did not speak. Right before she got pregnant, she lost everything in a fire, and she lived in an apartment. And she was so devastated. She was just despondent and suicidal and had lost all hope. And then she found out she was pregnant.
Oh my God, goosebumps everywhere. I already know where the story's going. I'm going to freak out. Keep
better.
going.
It's going to get better.
Uh-huh.
So she said her son literally saved her life. And she said he was absolutely my Superman, and I wanted to share the love that I got from him with the world. I feel like he's really impacting the world. And she said, so much so that his middle name is Superman's middle name.
Wow, that's cool.
So even for me, I hear crazy stories all the time, and but even for me, this was like, wow. And I was crying, and so yeah, it was pretty awesome for sure.
Oh my gosh. The second you said 5, I have a 5-year-old son. So I'm like I was like in that story. And I know, oh my gosh, that's incredible. The fact that the picture spoke to the mom so much. And I truly, truly believe that our kids pick us in a way. And the fact that he can't, they always say, I don't have autistic kids. And I know a lot of autistic parents who will say that their child could not be more brilliant, such a bright light. You know what I mean? Even if they're not able to speak, they just emit this amazing frequency and energy. And without a doubt, they are here for an amazing reason on this earth, to bring that light to the people around them. And the fact that this child, in my belief, chose this mother for this reason. Oh, it's just this story. I love it.
It was so confirming for her, what she believed, and that the impact that he has on others. He's just the sweetest little person, and she was just looking for help with how to help him be more comfortable and communicate a little bit more easily and things like that. She wasn't looking like, I have to fix this child.
Right.
He's perfect the way he is. It was kind of lovely, actually. So
I love that story. Kelsey.
Tear jerking 5 minutes into the episode.
Can I ask a question, Kelsey? Do you have something you want to ask first?
No, go for it.
Okay. So I'm really interested. You mentioned you're a licensed therapist, a counselor, therapist?
Yeah, counselor, same thing, basically. Yeah.
I know that you come from a pretty, I'm a hypnotherapist. And even though my field is very much like a little bit on the woo side, we have to be very strict, wear your name tag, be professional, don't bring your stuff into the room, don't acknowledge your clients outside of the office, that sort of thing. So I know that you probably had the same type of training and upbringing in your field. So how were you able to really transition from this like licensed therapist counselor to, I'm sure you take a lot of that stuff with you into this as well. And you kind of meld them both. So how did you decide, like, I'm intuitive. I really want to use these woo-woo, big heavy quotes. Yeah. I want to use these gifts with my professional training. How did you kind of marry those two together?
That's actually a really great question. Even before I recognize the extent of these gifts, I always worked intuitively, always. And the best sessions I had were when I just opened up and listened and said what they told me to say, allowed them to make the insights, and them meaning my guides. Sorry.
Did you know that's what you were doing at the time, or okay, gotcha.
Yeah. No, I absolutely knew. And even now I draw from my experience, and it's always intuitive, that my guides are always involved, but it's also from personal experience and experience with clients. But I always allowed them to be in control and listen to what they were saying, and allowed them to tune in to the other person's energy. And I think it's a really great combination, because I do have the clinical training, the ethics, all of that professional stuff that is so important to bring in. Even when people, I talk about very, very personal things with people, abuse and things they've never told anyone. And I feel like my experience in training has been really essential, because there are people who do, psychics or whatever, who do some of this work, and they'll tell somebody that they've been sexually abused, or they'll say that they're diagnosed. And I'm just like,
I just love that you bring this up, because a lot of times people will come to me from a reading, and I love psychics. Let me just say, there's a place for all of it. I think it's amazing. It's so valuable, but I can't tell you what happens when they come to me. Like, my psychic told me that I had to do this or else I'd be cursed, or you want to believe the things they say. And I'm just like, okay.
It's terrifying. And I'll have somebody say, well, a psychic told me I have this, and a psychic told me that. I'm like, okay, first of all, they're not allowed to diagnose you, nor am I. I'm not allowed to test. I'm not a doctor.
Yes.
I can point things out that I see. I can put you in, I can identify symptoms, and you can verify them. And I have naturopaths and other people who are licensed that I trust, that I then refer people to test, to confirm what I brought up or whatever. But no one can, please don't let anyone tell you that you have cancer. Dear Jesus.
Please don't.
I mean,
or that you're cursed.
Or that you've been sexually abused, or that you have an attachment, or that there's a lot of things that I try honestly to make what I do as non-woo-woo as possible.
Yeah.
Because we all have intuition.
Yes.
We all have medical intuition. When you yourself, if you have a stomach ache, if you have a rash, if you have whatever the hell it is, you have to decide, okay, number one, what do I think this is? What should I do about it? When does it come to the point where I need to get help with it? All that's medical intuition. You're listening to your body, and you're responding, and you're listening to your intuition. So I have it to the extreme, but just because I'm a medical intuitive doesn't mean other people don't have intuition, and it should be normalized, not like made into something freaky.
Well, and it's kind of like any skill you have. Like Kelsey is a dancer. She has a natural ability to feel the rhythm and move accordingly. I think that's what dancing is. I have no coordination. I try to be in a dance class. It's like anyone can do it. But if I practice real hard, if I was Kobe on the basketball court and I just practiced 24 hours a day, I'd probably be pretty good. It's just what you choose to focus your attention with and what comes naturally to you. And, I 100% agree. We all have the ability to listen. And it's funny. I just read a book to my kids last night before bed called I Listen to My Body, or Listening to My Body. That's all about, I know, I only find the ones that will make them better people or more empowered, those stories that teach kids how to do for themselves versus just handling it or dealing with it. But listening to your body, what do you feel? Rub your hands together. Do you feel heat? Do you, just practicing those little things that help them to feel into their body, emotions and sensations. And I think it's so important. Imagine if we were taught that as kids, how much different would society be at this point?
Oh God, everybody would be so, I can only imagine if that was introduced in a healthy way in my family or when I was younger. First of all, I couldn't talk to anybody about this stuff anyway.
Right.
And then there was just so much dysfunction that it was just bad. But if you even told the truth in my family, it was like, nope, that's, first of all, that's not the truth. Second of all, shut up. And, just it, yeah. So I love that you are working with your kids like that. I think that's amazing.
Listen to your body, peeps. What do you want to ask her?
Yeah. Well, first I wanted to share a story that came to me, like just to further make your guys' point about the whole everyone's medically intuitive. So I work part-time at a hair salon because I'm a cosmetologist by trade. And I love to create things with my hands and whatever. So I was like, there was a moment in time where the masks weren't mandated. And I was like, so relieved because like, oh, finally I can breathe while I'm blow drying people and talking to them, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's not fun to wear a mask while I do my job. Anyway, so we weren't wearing our masks as much. And then it wasn't mandated again, but I just had this feeling like, oh, I've been kind of stressed lately. I feel kind of run down. Like, I don't want to catch anything. Today I'm going to wear my mask, even though I don't have to. So I was like, I don't really want to, but I just strongly feel like I need to. So I wore it. And then I was working with clients, whatever. And then like a couple days later, when my clients text me and it's like, hey, I just want to let you know that I tested positive for Corona and I saw you on Friday. Like I'm really surprised because I was vaccinated and blah, blah, blah. I didn't know I had it. Sorry, blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, it's fine. I was wearing a mask. Like, everything's fine. Don't worry. And I was just like, damn. Good thing I listened to that part of me that was like, just wear it, even though you don't want to,
Yeah, no, and exactly, that's a perfect example. Yep,
you're never going to go wrong if you just listen in. Like your body and your body, your emotions, what sensations you're feeling, your intuition, it's never going to steer you wrong. It's so cliche to say it, but like that's one thing in this weird reality that we have that you can always count on to like try and help you and steer you in the right direction. So that's a really good story. Did you tell me that story? I don't remember that story.
No,
you didn't tell me that story
right now because it was finally relevant for something. But
yeah,
yeah, I just wanted to share that. But yeah, Lindsay, I think that's a great topic to dive into next. Like, any tips for tuning in, or maybe like, I feel like where people struggle is they get like little hits and downloads and things, but then they question too much.
Right.
So those are all excellent points. So the first step to listening to intuition or listening to your body is allowing your feelings. Because if you don't know what you're feeling, you can't really get past that. And there are a lot of reasons why people block out their feelings. And it can be, dysfunctional upbringings where they were taught not to have feelings, or feelings were not safe. People who have illness or pain or negative body images, the desire is to cut yourself off from your body because you don't like it or it's painful. You think your body is your enemy. So you cut yourself off and you end up not being grounded. You live in your head, right, or in the clouds or whatever. And another thing that can get kind of people a little bit tripped up is we all have an idea of what we need to do or that we need to make changes or whatever, but we're afraid that if we listen, that we're going to have to do it.
Right.
So if we push it away, then I don't have to deal with that reality. Well, what happens then is you just get sick, or you get into an accident, or something happens to you and your intuition keeps yelling at you until you make some contact and listen. I call it the feather or the sledgehammer. You can listen to the brush of a feather and get rest when you need to, or you can wait until you need a sledgehammer to hit you over the head. And I've been in both places. So,
yeah.
So having said that, one of my favorite techniques for connecting with intuition, this is all Jungian psychology. I can't take credit for it. This technique saved my life. Literally, I am here because of it. I'm healed from a really bad eating disorder because of this. So, and my definition for intuition is a bit different. It's this all-knowing force that is part of everybody. It knows everything about you, and it loves and accepts you unconditionally. It's always there keeping you safe. And it's kind of like this perfect bodyguard that, when you're with it, even if you're by yourself, you're not alone. So it's a little bit different way of looking at intuition. People just look at the psychic stuff. And the technique is to physically write out your feelings or question or your thoughts and direct it to your intuition. And I'll give some examples in a moment. And then just sit and wait for whatever you immediately hear, see, feel, and write that down. And then write back to it. And then see what you get back and write that down, write back to it for as long as you feel like it. You know, sometimes I do it for 5 minutes, sometimes I do it for 20 minutes, but it's something I still do. It's how I connect to my guides. I use, intuition and guides interchangeably. So the other way that I use that too is to connect to your body, write to your body, write to your symptoms. Instead of thinking of them as your enemies or something that is hurting you or punishing you, think of them as your friends. So you can ask, why are you here? What do you need me to know? How am I not being authentic? Whatever questions come to you. And kind of the same with the intuition exercise. There's no rules, but sometimes I'll say, do you have anything to tell me today? Or I'll just start writing and ask for feedback, or I'll ask a question about just basically anything, sometimes like a supplement or just decisions or things like that. So what doing it in writing does is, number one, you have to stop what you're doing to write instead of running around like a maniac, like we all do. And it becomes a mindfulness meditation because it puts you in the present moment. It grounds you. It helps to quiet the overthinking and a lot of the stuff we get in our head. And it really helps you focus on what you're saying and then what you're listening to. So it's a much more powerful exercise done in writing than trying to do it in your head with all this other stuff.
I have something to add, Kelsey.
Yes.
You know already what I'm going to add. The power of handwriting. So when I see a new client, I have them write down their goals and what they hope to achieve with hypnotherapy, write it in handwriting on unlined paper.
Yep.
And, no, don't try to make it pretty. I need to see exactly how you write. Handwriting is very, very powerful. I could not agree with you more because it is accessing that. It is accessing that, whatever you need to come through. And I also wanted to add too, for me, I do this for a living. I'm a hypnotherapist. However, it is very difficult for me to allow myself to be able to do that. So it will, for those of you who are like me that kind of tend to overthink and are very analytical and very much in your head a lot, possibly also with that body disconnect to some degree, it might feel difficult at first, but just like any other practice, just like any other thing that is important to you, it will need practice and it will need intention, and then it will feel easier. Accessing your intuition for those that have no practice or are very out of practice, it will feel very, very difficult. So just know that if it does, it's normal. Keep going, do it anyway, and it'll get easier.
Oh, exactly. And to piggyback on what you said, when you are writing, you are using your body. You're using
That's right.
aesthetic activity. So it connects you to your body without, even realizing it as well.
Yeah.
And
God, there's no downside. Just write, guys. Just write.
No. And what I love about it, there's so many things, but for me, when I had no self-esteem and no idea who I was and no connection to intuition, I used the loving force of intuition as I couldn't love myself. So the idea was to let this love me, to let it accept me. It didn't care what I looked like or what I weighed, or it didn't care about anything. There was no judgment. It was just this force that's part of everybody. Jung called it God within, and I think great description. But what can sometimes get in people's ways too when they're doing this is asking, why does this voice I'm hearing just sound like me? Or why aren't I getting very much information? Or I don't understand what it's trying to say. Or
this one, it's not telling me anything I don't already know. Like that's the best one, isn't it? Because yeah, of course it is. Of course you already know. That's the point. Anyway, go on.
Exactly. No, that's awesome. So I just tell people, don't judge it. Don't worry about where it's coming from. If it's coming from a part of you, cool. It does not matter. Just go with what you get. And let's say you're only getting a few words. First of all, like you said, it'll get easier. Maybe break down the question a little. Maybe you're asking something super broad, or I don't encourage people to ask what's in my future, because it's not for that,
Right.
It's for insight now, or getting to know yourself better, or getting closer to your authentic self, or whatever the hell is. But using it as a fortune telling thing is not how I think it should be used, most efficiently, if you will. So that is how I learned to consciously connect to my intuition, and find self-love and self-acceptance. And like I said, still do it.
What do you feel about, we've never actually talked about this on the show before, but I feel like the time is right. How do you feel about muscle testing and also pendulum, the pendulum work? Do you do that? How do you feel about it?
I don't have a lot of experience with muscle testing personally. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's validity to it. I think it has to be done by somebody who is very well trained, is very in tune. I think that, especially doing it on yourself, I think it can be super tricky.
Yeah,
because we're biased.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess like anything, it has to be done by somebody that you trust. But also, what I tell people is I never want anyone to substitute my intuition for their own. So if you get a result from a muscle test that doesn't feel good to you, that doesn't seem to fit, explore that. I think it's a tool that can be used with other things. And kind of the same with the pendulum. Like, the pendulum blows my mind because I get into it. I make my hand super still. I like rest it on here when I do it.
The pendulum's wild.
Not to move. And I can literally, in between questions, it stops and then it goes in a different direction. And, but I kind of have questions sometimes how much my energy is influencing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's been things that for sure it has been accurate about. And then there's other things that I'm like, what the hell? You told me yes on that, and then it didn't happen. So I use it as an adjunct, I think,
mm-hmm.
Because especially with my energy being so powerful, I don't mean to say it that way, but like,
girl, it's true.
So, yeah. So I know that I can potentially, even with what I want to happen, am I making it turn to the yes? Am I making it turn to the no? So I try to keep that in mind when I use. I also really like runes. Have you heard of runes?
I have heard of runes. I'm dancing around kind of learning about more because it sounds like something from Harry Potter, because it actually is something from Harry Potter. And so I'm like really excited about it, but also like, what is this?
So the thing that I love about Jungian counseling, Carl Jung, for anyone, that's the therapy that I use to.
Okay, on the Patreon, before you go further, I have to tell you about this story that I have about a client past life regression. That's all I'm going to say. It's an awesome story. And it's probably still to this day one of the wildest ones I have. And I think it has to do with what you're talking about. Go on.
Okay. So Carl Jung, genius way before his time, licensed doctor, but also took psychic stuff seriously, and astrology and mythology, and used a lot of these tools, Chinese medicine and all this stuff. So I was taught about runes during my therapy, which was totally cool. And the basic gist is you ask a question, and then there's a bunch of these stones with symbols on them, Viking symbols. So you pick one, then you look it up in the book and see what you think about that description. And again, it's kind of like oracle cards. It's kind of like important not to get dependent on them, because you want to access your own intuition. But sometimes, especially when you're doing stuff on yourself, you're just like, there's too many emotions involved or whatever. So it's too much. So runes are another really cool tool to use to tune into your intuition with that tool to help get answers.
I'm looking them up right now.
Yeah,
I need some runes in my life.
They're pretty neat.
Crap, there was something I was going to ask you. Oh, well, not really ask, but there's a little anecdote. I have a colleague who is really into muscle testing. Like, she's really good at it. And she's one of those people that can depend on it for herself and do it on herself because she's very practiced. I think, well, anyway, she every time she'd come over to my house, she'd be like, can you muscle test me for this? Just like push me. No, you just got to push. No, right here. And just a little put. And then she's like teaching me how to do it. And I'm like, I don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing. But since then I know I'm well versed in how to muscle test. I just don't use it as much. But I think if you are practiced and you think that it's a really great tool, it can be very helpful. The best thing for me when I use the pendulum is things that I could go either way about. Like if I really don't know and I have no skin in the game, so to speak, then the pendulum can be very telling and be very helpful in that way too. Yeah, really great tools. I can't believe how have we never had anybody on talking about muscle testing or like all this stuff before? I think that's wild, Kels.
Never asked.
I know. It just hasn't.
Honestly, I love symbolism and I love the body, and that's partly why I do these paintings, because it's all symbolism, and words as a human, we can misinterpret or we can read into, and symbolism, it's so much more objective. Like super quick story, I was doing a reading on a 12-year-old girl and I heard teeth enamel. So I know enough now to write it down and not try to freaking interpret it. Wrote it down, meet with her mom, because as a human, I was like, oh, she must have a lot of cavities. Talked to her mom. Her mom said she has extraordinarily strong teeth enamel and she's never had a cavity. So my guides were right on. If I had interpreted it like a human,
I
would have screwed it up.
Whoa. Yeah, that's the first thing I thought when you said tooth enamel. I'm like, oh, problems with her teeth, huh? Nope, actually opposite.
Exactly. So it's really, even when you're listening to your own intuition, to let that information come in and try not to do too much interpreting. Try not to let your anxiety take over. Anxiety just throws the whole thing off. And it's very hard to listen to the information. And I also tell people, the first step is just listening. You don't have to act on what it says.
Right.
You can decide, I am not ready for any of that crap, or maybe I can do a little, or dear God, I know that and I've been avoiding it for years and I really don't need to hear it again. But the most important thing is that you listen so you can be open, because if you block it out, you're not going to hear anything.
Every time I've actually stopped and listened, I have freaked myself out in the best way.
Hey there, we hope you're enjoying this episode so far, but if you want to listen to the whole thing, we're going to invite you over to our podcast. Either search for High Vibing It on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you guys listen to podcasts, or even better, if you want to watch the extended video version of this episode that's even longer than the actual podcast itself, head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/highvibe. Lindsay, tell them what's awesome about the Patreon.
Patreon is where we have all of our extended episodes. As Kelsey said, we have it on video, so you can actually see the things that we're talking about. Sometimes we have visual aids, and it's nice to know what we're talking about. We also have hangouts that we do sometimes that are exclusive to Patreon people. And you can get started with all of this and bonus content and everything that we have only for the Patreon people for as little as $3. I think it's $3.33 a month. And that's it. And you guys can get all the benefits and all access to everything that we put in there. Really cool.
It's really cool, really fun, super easy to join. And you guys don't even have to do that to finish this episode. If you're like, screw it, I don't want to pay any money, I just want to hear the rest of this episode, go to our podcast, High Vibing It, search for it wherever you listen. It's totally free. Either way, enjoy the rest of the show wherever you choose to enjoy it. And we will see you guys next week because we do a new one every week. Adios.
Bye.